infrastructure part of e-mobility and our grid situation and technologies that will support that. We have the discussion in English also due to the participation as a leading entity, let's say, in a consortium for EV for Europe, where Mr. Manos is leading with the DSO, the ΔΕΔΔΗΕ. But we will start our discussion. I will give the floor to Ms. Sdoukou, our Deputy Minister, to give her welcome remarks as well, and then we'll continue with the discussion.
Thank you very much, Kostas. Good morning, everyone. Minister, Christina, Mayor, all of you. I'm very, very happy to be here today. I think, Kostas, I will start by asking, I don't know, all of you to join me, you know, in this time traveling, because you mentioned it's the 7th. Okay, so if we travel back in 5 years, 7 years before, when the first eco-mobility conference took place, where we were back at that time. We were confronting ourselves with a situation where e-mobility, I guess, for Greece was a crazy idea, right? Crazy idea for Greeks because there were so many other issues and problems that concerned us back at that time. But it was, I think, a new sector to develop, but mostly for some northern, I would say, European countries. But fast forward 7 years to date, I think that we are at a completely different environment. Greece has already made a solid kickstart in promoting e-mobility and eco-mobility, I would say, in general, during the last 4 years, bringing the country closer and closer to the European average when it comes to the penetration of electric vehicles in new car sales, and also the rollout of charging infrastructure. I think that this is a result of hard work that started 4 years ago. Now it's continued by the Ministry of Infrastructure and Transport. I was very happy to hear Deputy Minister earlier today shared the results in supporting the further development of e-mobility and what are the plans. And this is a promising start that allows us, I would say, to push ahead faster and become more ambitious in our targets for decarbonizing the transport sector. This is something I want to highlight. Electrifying our transport sector, I think it can no longer be considered as a wishful thought. It's the only way to decarbonize our transport sector. A sector, according to the last OECD report for Greece, that is the second largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in Greece. 1/5 of all greenhouse gas emissions emanate directly from transport, with 85% of which arise from road transport on land. And also, transport, you already, I'm sure, know this, is the single sector with the largest energy needs, accounting for 38% of final energy consumption. So I think it becomes evident from these figures that decarbonizing our transport sector serves considerably towards decarbonizing Greek economy as a whole. And we are committed to do so. We are committed through our National Energy and Climate Plan. As you know, our revised NECP, the draft of which has already been shared with the European Commission, includes quite increased targets when it comes to the electrification of light-duty vehicles. We aim for 500,000 EVs to be on the Greek roads by 2030. And this increased ambition in electrification of transport sector obviously goes hand in hand with our increased targets for renewables penetration in electricity production. As you know, with 80% of our electricity produced in Greece by 2030 coming from renewables is also an ambitious target. So as both things have to happen in parallel, if we really want to benefit from zero-emission transport in the next decades, we would really need to work hard. Now, let's continue through our time traveling, jumping ahead another 7 years from now, fast forward to 2030 this time, when I think someone mentioned that before, over 300 million electric vehicles are expected to be on the world's roads, according to the International Energy Agency, with 40 million of them expected to be in Europe. This expected surge in EV adoption, driven obviously by sustainability goals, necessitates as well the shift expansion of the charging infrastructure. And I'm very happy to see that this year in the, you have a dedicated actually sector discussing about charging infrastructure. And when we talk about charging infrastructure, what we are really looking at is the electricity grid. It's the electricity grid as well as the wider energy system behind this infrastructure. So the electricity grid that will need to deliver all the necessary energy required if we want to keep these vehicles moving. And I think we all here today agree that making our electricity grid ready to cater for all this new demand coming from EV, this is not expected to be the easiest of tasks, as the fluctuation power demand for EV can cause disruptions in the electric grids if not managed properly, while also the grid, if not prepared to connect all this infrastructure and supply the necessary energy when needed, this can very quickly turn into a bottleneck, I would say, for the expansion of the charging infrastructure, especially the high power one. In my view, I think there are two different areas we need to focus on from a policy making point of view, and also from the network operators' side when it comes to gearing up the grid and the energy system as a whole, if we want to become a facilitator and not a blocker for fast EV adoption. First, we need to cut down the red tape and make sure that the administrative and permitting processes from application of a new grid connection all the way to connecting and electrifying new charging infrastructure, such as, for example, a charging hub. This can be can become on a smooth and fast way. So the ease of building an EV charging hub can vary, I think, considerably from country to country. And as things stand, Europe-wide, I think that the time needed for connecting the EV recharging points to the grid, this can indeed be a barrier to accelerate the uptake of EVs and needs to be tackled. Although this, of course, is a common issue across Europe. It's not just a Greek problem. For example, even in Germany, as far as I know, a new charging hub can be held up for various months in order to get the permitting procedures. So we, here in Greece, we have to do our best to tackle this issue. I know that HEDNO, our distribution grid operator, is seriously looking into it from their side. I'm sure Mr. Manos, the CEO of HEDNO, will tell us more about this just after. And second issue is to introduce flexibility in how electric vehicles are charging and in how the grid operates. So the concept of flexibility, and by that I mean the ability of consumers to adjust their demand when they receive appropriate incentives. This is gaining more and more importance when it comes to the management and operation of electricity distribution networks. And the purpose, I think, of providing flexibility is to shift consumption in such a way that existing grid infrastructure is used efficiently and avoiding the need for costly expansions. I think there are three elements needed in order to materialize them in practice. First is the use of smart chargers, so allowing for EVs to charge when renewable share in electricity is higher and electricity prices are lower, or even being able to stop charging when there is a peak in demand. The grid cannot cope this. We actually, as you know, have mandated the use of smart chargers in our e-mobility law already since 2020. The second thing is the digitalization of the electricity grid, where smart control systems are installed in grid assets, combined with the rollout of smart meters across all customers. And again, here, I guess, Tasso, you will tell us more on your ongoing efforts and plans to smartify the Greek electricity network. And the third thing is the introduction of dynamic pricing in electricity bills. So in order to provide the economic incentives to EV users to change their charging patterns, benefiting from lower prices. We all know that such dynamic tariffs do already exist in other European countries, either on a pilot way. I heard that Copenhagen, Denmark, for example, electricity suppliers, they offer dynamic pricing for public EV charging, so reducing the prices. There is already in commercial mode. I've heard that UK, for example, gives certain tariffs and they offer 3 times, as far as I know, cheaper than the UK average rate during specific hours of the day for the energy used. So this should also be implemented in Greece. We do have the legislation, the framework needed for introducing such flexible tariffs. What is needed going forward is a very close cooperation between the Ministry of Energy, HEDNO, the regulatory authority of energy, and of course all energy supplier companies to get to this point that actually consumers can soon benefit from such services. So summarizing, I would like to really emphasize on our government's dedication to take all the necessary steps, and at the same time also ensure that the required funding is also available to implement all these policies in order to prepare as well our energy system for the accelerated large-scale electrification in transport, as well as several other sectors, for example, cooling, heating sector as well. So we need to act now. We need to plan effectively for what is coming in 5, 10, 20 years' time, and all the way to 2050, when we aim to reach the net zero status. And at the same time, what is fascinating, I think, and I'm closing with that, is to keep a close eye on all the advancement and on all the innovation trends that happen around the world. I think looking on what is going on in other countries and how technology and innovation is being developed, this is going to be also very helpful for the Greek market. So thank you very much. And,
thank you. Minister Sdúkου, thank you very much for this. I would say the spotlight is on you, Mr. Manos, because every discussion that we are having about e-mobility, grid, infrastructure, the developments there are mentioned, and we would love to hear from you what are the developments, what has the DSO done, HEDNO has done so far, and what are you planning to do next, and what are the challenges and how you are planning to address those challenges in the future.
Thank you very much, first of all, for the invitation and for addressing this subject and for giving us the opportunity to speak to the audience. So I'll start as last year with correcting the misconception to what extent there is adequate support or capacity from the network to support EVs. There is, because quite often we open this subject. And I would also like to start from another point that last year we had discussed some measures that we had initiated with Ms. Sdúkου, and it had to do with partial ΔΕΔΔΗΕ, μερική ΔΕΔΔΗΕ, the declaration for safe electricity use for the EVs stations, and also the digital partial EU. So this is something that we have resolved, and I think it has made significantly easier the life of the people that want to connect a charging point. Now, there is another thing that we need to, however, to remember when it comes to EVs and the charging locations. And what is about a typical 11 to 22 kilowatt connection is equal to 3 houses. A typical 250 kilowatt connection is equal to 50 houses. So 3 buildings, 3 πολυκατοικίες χοντρικά. 600 kilowatts, it's a small hotel of 150 beds. And when we're talking about fast charger points on the national roads, we're talking about 6 hotels of 150 beds, a Hilton hotel. So when a SEA asks for a fast charger at its location, in reality what it asks us to connect a Hilton. Just figure this out. It's not just a box. The box that you see there on the corner, it's equal to the consumption of a Hilton hotel, one of the biggest hotels that we have in Athens. If you go to electrostasio for buses, in reality we're talking for 2 or 3 Hiltons, depends. Now, why do I start with that? And I will consume much more time, but you will excuse me for that. I start by that because although we cannot see it, we cannot feel it, we cannot understand it because it's just a cable, it's humongous. I don't expect that when we connected Hilton, the connection took a day. The infrastructure was for connecting Hilton at that time, different era, different period, that doesn't matter. It took months or years. So, with that in mind, we connected already, and we are working on, we connected already the two new locations for the electrical buses in both Athens and Thessaloniki. And actually our works lasted something like between 5 to 15 days. The licensing process from Archeologia, Architectonico, and all the rest, archaeological offices and municipalities' offices about architecture and so on, I think lasted between 1 to 3 months. So occasionally when people complain, and they're right to complain, because the customer, what it sees is the total time. It doesn't really care to what extent it is because of really head-nose works or for all other good reasons of licensing. It may take months. Now, let's go to really to the essence about it. So, based on the ESEC, National Climate Energy Plan, there was an initial target for 80,350. Now, I think it's around 500,000 cars till 2030. And of course, this is, as it was also mentioned, in order to meet also the Fit for 55 targets. This means that we estimate an increase in the consumption of the country of about 3.3% if it is about 500,000 cars. Of course, as it was very well also mentioned, head-nose role is crucial and pivotal for that. Again, just to highlight that the role of head-nose, though, is the design of the network, the adjustments to the network, and then ensuring that the retailers, the commercial players, have access to that. So has nothing to do in reality for head-nose in reaching the market. We're not allowed to reach the market, except if in an area for 2 years there is no commercial player offering a solution, then we are obliged to, by law, to be a last resort and move to that. Another thing that it is very nice to share about our job is that we try to be wearing the shoes of our consumers and our customers. So to this extent, we experiment also on the EVs, and we have already electrified with fully electric cars 25% of our total fleet. But if you exclude the industrial fleet, I mean bucket trucks and trucks that are not, there are no electrical EV solutions yet, we may be close to 50%. So we're walking the talk, and we're walking the talk in terms to experiment and see what we can do. Now we're working on 3 actions, on 3 pillars. The one is, of course, the increase in the infrastructure, and tell you about a few things I have shared also last year about it, and what we have in our plan till 2030, and we have adequate investments, and the funding is secured, so there is no worry about it. The second thing is about dynamic pricing and dynamic zone charging, which is very important in order to ensure better performance of all the networks, both distribution and transmission. And the first thing, third, but also very important now in the start, is declaring officially the EV chargers. We have a surprise there, though. Out of the 10,000 EV chargers, only 6% is declared officially to head-nose and to the platform that we have built together with the Ministry of Energy. And this means that out of the 10,000, only 604 in reality
this is an obligation.
Yes, it is
right?
an obligation.
An obligation.
And I'll continue with a positive surprise to help the market evolve. And the idea about it is that 92% out of those EV chargers are with smart meters. Now, as it was very well mentioned, it is an obligation. And there are 2,178 παροχές δηλωθεί στο ΜΙΦΙΑ. Sorry for the Greek also, but I cannot translate everything just like that. And only 600, as I mentioned, have been declared to HEDNO. Now, in order to accommodate to the market at the end, because we cannot allow this to be continued, from mid-February onwards, we'll start discontinuing the EV chargers that are not declared. And that's an official statement, because at one point in time, the suppliers need to do what they need to do. Only one big supplier is fully abiding by law. I'm following Karai's approach of sharing only positive news. All the rest are not. So only the number one player is doing it, rest do not abide. Why does this matter? Because with the smart meter system that we're putting also on the EV chargers, we will allow for dynamic pricing in the future. We plan by hopefully before summer or close to the mid of the year, plus minus a few months, to offer these services of zoning pricing. So this means that the ones that are not declared will not have the benefit, period. So in this country, I believe it is very, very important to follow also the rules and the processes in order to have the corresponding services. So that's another important item. Now, let's go to what extent it is adequate to connect EV chargers everywhere. I have been reading a few articles that they were mentioning that besides the public places, in order to have EV penetration really skyrocketing, we need to have EV chargers at houses and offices. This is the latest studies from Germany. Let's see, I mean, we have different directions coming from all over the place. So let's review what's the situation in Greece. We have 10,000 connections of medium voltage, 60,000 connections of big clients, low voltage 5, 6, 7, etc. 60,000 connections type 4. So for all those connections, they do not need to do nothing in order to connect EV chargers. Not one, a lot. And at homes, we have 1.5 million οικιακές παροχές, connections for houses, number 2 and above, which means those ones can connect immediately 11 to 22 kilowatts EV chargers with no actions from our side, from HEDNO side. Of course, it helps, as I said, to report it. So let's go back, let's step back. We were saying about 100,000 connection points till 2030 for 500,000 cars. And what we confirm is we confirm that we can connect tomorrow 1.5 million. Now, what about our actions, though? Athens, Attica is the key challenge. I know time is pressing. I will try in the next 3-4 minutes to transmit the key messages. We are already have finished and we can connect to distribution center of Abelokipous, which is 300 megawatts easily. We are, it's operational and it has 0 loads. We are finalizing the contract for Ilio, 200 megawatts. Keratea will get into tender phase in Q1 2024, 150 megawatts. Glyfada, where we need more electricity from the transmission side, though, 150 megawatts will get into tender phase Q3 24, and Nea Smyrni Q1 25, another 300 megawatts, and we have a few more 225 megawatts till 2028. And we are doing more improvements. So we will be adding 1.5 gigawatt in Attica in order to be proactive square or cube in terms of the needs of electricity for the future. Now, this is one part, and I'm finishing with the trivial. That was the trivial part. There is another part that it is more interesting, and it is the prosumers, and it's V2X, vehicle to grid, vehicle to home, vehicle to business, all the V to a letter. And for the V2 letter, it means that those guys, those prosumers with your electrical car, you will not go. I was yesterday in London and I met some friends and they were telling me, we work from home 3 times a week. We go to the office only 2 times, max.
V2 what?
V2 grid, V2 home, H, V2 business, V2X. It means general. Yes, it is all the permutations we can have in a way. And they were telling me they work 3 times a week. So those guys, they can even stay at home 5 days a week. So they can have their own electrical cars. They charge it at night with zone charging, which it's beneficial for everybody because we make better use of the network. We have less energy losses. We have less change to heat, etc., etc. And then during the day, when they work with their Zooms and Teams and all alike programs, not to make any specific brand, they can sell to the grid, to the system, to a market, or to all this kind of stuff. So this will also help us have a better use of the renewables of all the systems. Now, to this extent, we're working again with Ms. Sdúku, the Deputy Minister, in order to have a legislation approved the coming few weeks regarding resolving the issue of short-circuit electricity, ρεύμα βραχικύκλωσης, which in reality will allow for a safe and proper connection of batteries as a renewable energy means across Greece without, in reality, limitations. So, again, we work on the proactive side of the story in order for HEDNO to be quite a few years earlier ready vis-à-vis the needs that will come up. Prosumers are not yet in Greece. We still have to think about it, about the κανονιστικό and ρυθμιστικό πλαίσιο, so all the regulatory aspects, but still we will be together with the Ministry of Energy ready about it. And closing, to leave some more space for Q&As, some more challenges. Besides the EV stations for buses and all the rest items, we have also the electrification of ports, where again we try to be in the forefront of the European evolution. We have formed a committee and we're discussing about the solutions. We're discussing with the regulator, of course with the ministry, and more stuff will come up in the future opportunities. Maybe in one of the next conventions, not only EVs for cars, but it could be EVs for ships as well, combined. So thank you very much, everybody, and we're open also to any question you have.
Thank you, Mr. Manos. You have touched upon a number of issues. What we can say as a highlight is that the DSO is ready and is getting ready for what is coming, and at least taking the example of Attica that you just mentioned.
You made this statement, you're ready. Watch out.
Of course, but remember, I need some time. Each time I connect a Hilton, I need some time to pass some cables, change some transformers.
We need comprehension yes. From our side, who keep on pushing you every day.
Exactly.
We hope that everything could happen in an instant, but yes, we do understand the constraints. There are time constraints that we have to take into consideration. We have to abide with the regulation, with the legislation, and what you just mentioned, the fact that we need to have a list of things, a memory, a categorization of where everything is, all the chargers, what type of chargers. It is very important, and you passed another message that we have to enforce the legislation one way or the other.
And of course, we need also to fight our internal inclination as people of this country and culture, not to overshoot continuously in terms of needs. I mean, you're at home. You have one electric car. You really don't need to have a 22 kilowatt charger. I mean, with the 11 kilowatt charger, it can charge easily in 5-6 hours during night.
Some cars do not even receive 22 kilowatts
yes.
anyway.
Yeah. So, yeah.
We like a little bit exaggeration.
Yes, we love it. So let's really be prudent. Overshooting for overshooting, it's not really helpful. On the other hand, we were again proactive with the ministry to this respect, because network charges now are correlated not to consumption, but to the capacity of your connection. So if you really want to have this benefit of having 50 kilowatt charger, while in reality you have a car with a 40 kilowatt hours battery, and you just want to charge it in an hour, there is a price for it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's very true. Because we are being pressed by time now, I have a question for Ms. Sdúku. We know that e-mobility is maturing. We have seen that. We see that every year, so especially for the past 3-4 years, when we put the framework, the government has put the framework for this to develop. But that means that we need to reimagine a little bit the future of e-mobility and infrastructure from the part at least of the energy mix or the energy sector, if I may say, that you are responsible. So what kind of technologies do you think that will allow us the usage of vehicles and the usage of the battery now, based on all of these technologies, the vehicle to grid, the vehicle to home that Mr. Manos mentioned earlier, for us to assist as well the grid and all this story that we have just heard?
That's why I said, Kostas, that we should have a very close look on what is happening abroad and follow up the technologies and innovations, because we are living in an era that is defined by rapid urbanization on the one hand. On the other hand, we have a pressing need to address climate change. And I think that modern power grids are moving away from this centralized model, from heavy infrastructure, and they're going towards more flexible and more capable of managing diverse renewable energy sources systems. So I think that network operators, they require new ways of managing the increased number of producers, end users, and also these volatile power distribution systems of the future. So this is why I believe, and Tassos mentioned them, that technologies like vehicle to grid, for example, that will allow EVs to both charge and discharge energy back into the grid. They can make actually electric vehicles really valuable assets for energy management. And if we look at the Greek energy system by 2030, with very high renewables share, right? We will need a considerable size of energy storage in the form of batteries that are connected to the grid. According to the National Energy and Climate Plan, we have calculated that we need around 5 gigawatt of storage capacity. And part of this capacity could come as well, I can imagine, of the so-called batteries on wheels, the electric car batteries. So using either vehicle-to-G technologies or through recycling and reusing of the batteries. This is another aspect that we haven't go deeply through it and see what is needed to recycle and reuse. I know that after a lifespan of, 8-10 years of a battery, the capacity drops approximately to 70-85% of the battery range. So why can we use them as stationary systems? So in combination with renewable energy generation, these batteries, and also having wind and solar from renewable, they can. I can imagine that they can help in the electricity network, and I think that if we manage to develop a little bit more in Greece these two sectors, the vehicle to something grid, whatever you mentioned, and the recycling and the reuse of batteries. This will definitely have an impact in reducing carbon footprint. This is what we ultimately want. And this is going to help us also increase the renewable energy available on the grid. As far as I know, the global, I think, battery recycling market, there is an estimation that from now until 2030, it will be increased approximately 37 point something %. So these sectors. So this is a huge new market, I think, for us, and we have to start looking on it very seriously.
Given that our time is up, I would like to ask Mr. Manos, we have the EV for EU project that we are participating, and you talked already about the V2X technologies. How fast do you see them, being applied here? And what are the main challenges or main issues that we should pay attention to regarding those two technologies?
As you very well mentioned, we participate to the EV for EU, but also to quite a lot of projects. And the idea is how we leverage V2 grid and V2X technology and the critical mass for electric vehicles. Now, and as it was also very well mentioned by Ms. Sdúku, the EVs will have a role in the future and will improve the energy mix at the system in the broader sense, because we will be in position to use also the cars to let's say, have energy in a warehouse. Now, for HEDNO, we are moving across all the directions, GIS, studies, metering services, in order to accommodate this evolution and transition. Now, in the first phase, we also need to create the regulatory framework for these smaller storage units, such as the EVs, to discharge energy into the grid and have then the evolution to the prosumers that I was mentioning earlier on. The National Energy and Climate Plan acknowledges this importance, and there are proposed solutions around this. So we're working on that, and we believe it can come faster than anticipated.
And last point, we talked about e-mobility not only for cars, but we should integrate it in other sectors. Shipping could be one of them. We need to see the infrastructure on the port side as well, and a lot have been happening as well on this side from the part of the ministry's perspective. Where do we stand on that point?
No, that's very interesting, very challenging, difficult. Another policy, another project the called ironing in ports, because we need to decarbonize other sectors as well. And this is why we kick off a meeting with the Ministry of Maritime Affairs, the minister and all his team. So we sat down at the Ministry of Energy with HEDNO. We decided to set up a committee dedicated for this purpose. How many ports? We have 150 ports, as far as I know. 5 of them, they belong to the hardcore European network. Another 20 of them are also, what?
Are of the complementary hub and spoke model, so because they're satellites, they again fall into that.
Okay, so I think that it's very important we start maturing the energy needs of these ports, because greening the electricity to vessels is not an easy case, and there will be needed a lot of work on behalf of HEDNO in each port, and a lot of funding for that, but this is, we cannot do differently.
An additional challenge is we're talking about islands as well. It's not only the ports on this side. Maybe we should also address that in the island system, which is even more difficult.
And it's not only called ironing. I think we should start seeing as a picture in Greece, and not just dreaming it, having electric ferries for short distances.
Short CCP.
As far as I know, for destinations, routes less than an hour, I think it could be completely feasible, doable to have electric ferries. And this is the first project we are working to make an electric ferry for the destination of Galatas Poros. This is under the project, as you know, the next GR Eco Island, which is Poros. This is something we have signed during COP28 with the Mazda company. So now the task is to sit down and start designing all the interventions, green interventions on the island to decarbonize and make it a green and smart island. But the most fascinating part would be how we can manufacture actually an electric ferry doing this destination.
Yeah. Tasso?
And to add to what Ms. Sdούkου said, from our side, we're designing already the infrastructure. Together we design also what needs to be done on the legislation side, because we will need to be committing a part of a corner in the ports to have our equipment, or at least nearby the ports, and then Hedno again can support in creating the necessary distribution network on the port and really move faster than other European countries.
Excellent. Thank you very much for the discussion that we have had together.